This person does their best in their job to provide an important service to the public, but when they encounter this rude woman on the phone, they decide to do exactly as she says, with hilarious consequences. While working at a car company, this person goes above and beyond to help out when there are staffing issues, but this manager is not happy, so this person decides to get a little revenge by complying with exactly what the manager has said. She is trying to sell her PS4 online, but who gets the winning bid? This entitled parent. Naturally, things do not go to plan. Now she has to deal with this nightmare child. How much terror can this EP and her kid cause? You'll only find out by watching this episode of VoiceyHere's Entitled Parents, featuring Malicious Compliance. This story was called, Want Me to Answer Every Call? Sure thing. Enjoy your wait. Background. Part of my job involves taking calls from the public to offer various types of support. This can range from tech support to helping people find services in our county that they need. My team is me and one other person. Between us, we have to cover 7:30 to 19:30, Monday to Friday, and weekends as well. Because of this, and the fact that the company won't invest in call waiting for us, we can only take one call at a time. Our voicemail quite clearly states that we're a small team, but if you leave your name and number, we aim to get back to you within 5 minutes. Normally people are rather understanding of our situation, and are happy for us to call them back, but as the world is full of impatient jerks, we often get voicemails just criticizing us. Now, this happened today, and I've been waiting to react this way for a long time, and finally got the opportunity to. Voicemail from AC.
This is bloody ridiculous. I was told to call the number, but what's the freaking point in telling people to call if there's nobody to answer the phone?
AC calls again. Hello, you're through to company name. Speaking, how can I help you?
Oh, so now you answer the phone. What is the point of having a number if you never bloody answer it?
Did you leave us a voicemail? I've just listened to it, but unfortunately you didn't leave any contact details, so I was unable to return your call. Thank you for calling back. How can I help you?
You should answer every call that comes through.
Well, unfortunately, there are only 2 people in my team, including myself, and there tends to be one of us in at a time. So if I answered every call, I'd end up having to keep putting people on hold, and that really doesn't seem fair. Regardless though, you're through at the moment, and I'm happy to help you however I can.
You can help me by doing your job and answering the phone when it rings.
At this point I'm like, screw you lady. So sod it, I'll comply. Okay, sure, I'm sorry that I've annoyed you. I'll make sure to answer the phone whenever it rings. Now how can I help? AC starts to describe her problem. The phone rings. Oh, I'm sorry, the phone is ringing. I'll have to place you on hold.
Wait!
Hold. I then help the person calling, taking my sweet, sweet time. Like going above and beyond just to keep this other bee waiting. Plus, you know, it's nice to help people. Take AC off hold. Thanks for your patience. Now, you were saying?
How dare you put me on hold, especially—
Oh, I'm sorry, the phone is ringing. I'll have to place you on hold. Hold. You can see where this goes. I think I managed to keep this going for about 15 to 20 minutes before she hung up, and I'm in for the next 10 hours. Gosh, I hope she calls back. Entitled people always fail to see from other people's perspective. She was annoyed because the phone wasn't being answered for her, but the reason it wasn't being answered for her is because they were providing help to the people who they were currently speaking to. For her call to be answered immediately, other people would have to have their calls interrupted. I'd like to say she learned her lesson and now she understands why they couldn't answer her phone call straight away, but I sincerely doubt it. My guess is she just walked away thinking it was terrible customer service. This story was called, You Start at 7, You Finish at 7. I'm not sure if this truly belongs here, but here it goes. I used to work at a car company about 2 or 3 years ago, as a telephonist on the night shift doing 12-hour shifts. It was pretty good, 4 days working, 3 days off, and the pay was decent. However, most people didn't take their job seriously. They would call in sick or just not show up for work at all, and especially on nights when there were only 4 of us. If one person didn't show up, you felt it. I was a star employee. I showed up early, logged in, and started working usually from 6:30. I never took a sick day, changed my holidays to fit the company's needs, and worked any overtime they needed me to work. I was so dedicated to my role that I had worked on multiple occasions, 18 to 24 hours, as people wouldn't show up for shifts and they needed cover. It was my first real job and I believed in the company. I used the train system to get to and from work and always planned out my routes around as much as I could to avoid being late. However, on this particular day they were running a reduced service due to breakdowns. A lot of the trains had been repaired using less than stellar parts, and the wheels kept sticking to the track when they hit the brakes, causing wearing on the wheels in specific spots. So a lot of trains were out of commission. On top of that, the train I was on had been stopped due to a signal issue for 15 to 20 minutes. This led me to being late. I had shown up about 10 minutes late to the start of my shift. Before I had even sat down, my manager was giving me grief. Apparently, they were mad because I had stopped other telephonists going home, as someone had to work 10 extra minutes to cover my shift, as 2 people were ill and I couldn't make it in. Now, I hate being late. I was already ticked off that I was late, but my manager giving me trouble as soon as I walked through the door just irritated me even more. I replied to him as follows: "Apologies I was late. However, how many times have I ever been late? I show up 30 minutes before my shift every day. I have stayed late to cover days before the train had an issue, and it was out of my control. I was stuck underground with no signal to call or text you to let you know." My manager didn't give a crap. Their reply to me was, "You start at 7, you finish at 7. You are in early on your own time. Those times you have stayed behind, you have been paid, and no one asked you to." "Okay then," was my reply. The next day was extremely busy. My colleague had left and only one of the morning guys had shown up for his shift to take over. As he sat down, I began to pack up. At 7 AM on the dot, I left. As I usually helped out when this happened, everyone was surprised and had asked me where I was going. My only reply was, "I start at 7, I finish at 7. This was my final shift, and so I was off for the next few days. On my first shift back, I get pulled into the office by my manager with HR. They ask me why I left a single telephonist on their own. I looked at my manager and repeated the exact same words that were said to me. My manager informed me that I start at 7, I finish at 7. The look on HR's face was priceless. She was ticked. She already had a staff issue to deal with, and on top of that, one of her most helpful staff members had been mugged off by the manager. She told me to go back to my desk and she needed to speak to the manager in question. 20 minutes later, the manager came back in, looking absolutely defeated. He never ever said anything to me again about being late. I think a lot of these managers are very in the moment. They get emotional about a single mistake happening, and they don't see the big picture. And this is where they really have to be careful what they wish for. In that moment he said, "You start at 7, you finish at 7, thinking that that would improve the employee's behavior, when really, the employee was going above and beyond what was expected of them in the first place. Really, they were subsidizing the bad behavior of the other employees with the good behavior of this employee, and a business is not going to last long on that." This story was called "No Breaks for My Shift? Got it." I work part-time at a pharmacy chain, and recently our store got a new manager. We'll call her NM for short. Well, NM is one of the most power trip bosses I have ever met. She always has to enforce whatever rules she can think of. For example, one of my co-workers had to switch with someone for a family emergency. When they told NM, she reluctantly agreed, but the next schedule she put out, she had an announcement saying, "Once the schedules are posted, no changes or switches," how NM wrote it, were allowed. So for my malicious compliance, we'll start with how my former boss used to provide longer shifts, usually 6-hour shifts to ensure we get a good length-worthy shift, as well as a 15-minute break without a lunch. Typically, even if we'd only work 4-hour shifts, he'd still give us a break. For full shifts longer than 7 hours, we'd get a break as well as a lunch. If we had a 4-hour shift, all the supervisors would still make sure we'd get a small break. I believe for most of us, this made it feel like a much better environment, as we got a mental break from customers. Our customer service scores would back that up. Our former boss gets transferred, and slowly but surely, NM starts giving us 4-hour shifts. That way everyone can work throughout the week. She eventually posted a notice: our state laws on meals and breaks allowed from now on. One of them said, any shift that is 4 hours or less does not require a break. The other said, any shift that is 4 to 6 hours requires a break of 15 minutes. This policy takes place effective immediately. Everyone was kinda mad because of the new rule, but had no other choice to agree. Her words were, we need to follow policy and not break the rules. This one shift, it was just me and NM for 4 hours, where after the 4th hour, I had to leave, and NM would stay by herself for 30 minutes, till the next coverage would come in. We ended up having a huge line right as my last 10 minutes were up on my shift. Her expectation, I'm assuming, was for me to stay then clock out. Those 10 minutes were up and I just finished with a customer, so I say, I'm out, have a good shift. NM says, can you help me with the line then leave? I said, sorry, I didn't get a break, and I wouldn't want to break policy by working and not getting one. I proceed to clock out right as I hit that 4th hour. As I walked out, I could tell she had this look on her face that she knew she lost. I ended up telling my other co-workers, and now they're all clocking out right on the exact time their 4th hour is completed, even if she asks to stay a couple minutes longer. It even went as far as one of us having to take a break after our 4th hour completed, only to leave 15 minutes later. A business is simply not a charity. That goes for both the people you employ and for the people who work there. The workers aren't entitled to a job, and the business isn't entitled to the labor of the workers, which is why they enter into the voluntary agreement in the first place. So you can't blame them if that's the policy, and they didn't get their break, to be expected to work over 4 hours, just because it's only a few more minutes. You gotta love when the hero of our story uses the antagonist's own reason against them. This story was called Entitled Mum and Her Son Demand to Buy My PS4 for $110 instead of the $320 we agreed on. A few months ago, I bought a PS4 Pro along with a couple of games. I barely use the thing, and since I could use some money, I figured I might as well sell it. So I made an ad on Craigslist, and sure enough, people started bidding on it. The highest bid was $320, and I emailed the buyer to come pick it up. The emails they sent were polite and friendly, so I thought it would be a problem-free meetup. On the arranged date, my doorbell rings. It's a mother with her 8-year-old son. Let's call him Brad from now on. The mum is polite. Brad doesn't say much, so I invite them into my apartment to look at the PS4. As soon as I open my apartment door, Brad immediately runs towards the PS4 and starts touching the games and console with his filthy paws. He yells, Yes, Far Cry 5! I want to play it, can I play it? Yeah, sure. Turn it on so you can see that it's a working PS4. Brad forcefully rips the Far Cry 5 CD out of the box and pushes it into the PS4. Brad clicks the play button and installs himself in front of my TV. He opens my save file and literally starts playing the game. He also throws some insults my way about how bad I am at this game and how few items I have unlocked. The mum ignores all of this and sits her butt down on my couch. This is where I start to get kind of annoyed. So, do you want to buy it? Well, I have to see if he likes the game console first. Okay. So next up, a few of the most awkward minutes of my life start. I sit down on my couch, Brad plays the game, and no one says a thing. After some time, feeling like an eternity, the mum pulls out her phone and freaking starts playing Candy Crush. I ask Brad if he likes the game, but he completely ignores me. I try to come up with an excuse for them to leave faster. So, I have to go to sports training in 15 minutes. Can you guys decide if you want to buy it? Yes, I think we want to buy it. Brad, can you pay this nice lady? Brad then finally pauses the game and comes up to me. He reaches into his pocket and gives me some $5 and $10 bills. I count the money and it's not nearly enough. This is $110. Well, Brad doesn't have much more money than that. We agreed on $320. It's not worth that amount. The PS4 is not new, and all the games you sell are 18 plus rated, so Brad can't play any of them. I am not selling it for $110. We agreed on the price. Meanwhile, Brad notices that his chances of getting a PS4 are diminishing, so he starts making those whiny, almost crying sounds while clinging to his mum. He looks at me like I'm the devil himself. The mum is also giving me this, I can't believe you are this rude look. Look, Brad saved a lot of money to buy this. He wants it really bad. Can't you sell it for a little cheaper? No, we agreed on $320. I find it a bit rude of you to show up here and suddenly want it for less. The mum then lets out this deep sigh and reaches into her wallet to add another $50 to the pile. I still refuse and politely ask them to leave if they do not want to pay for it. I give them back their money and turn off the PS4. Brad then gets a full-on tantrum. He starts crying and screaming at the top of his lungs and throws my PS4 controller across the room in full force. He starts screaming that he hates me and that I'm a B.
Look how sad you made him, being so cheap towards a child. Don't you have a heart? We agreed that we could buy it. This is unacceptable.
They then finally left and I have heard nothing from them since. The mum rated me 1 star on Craigslist, my country's version of it, but it seems that that's the end of it. The controller had a little scratch, but still works. I am still mad about the whole ordeal. Most people, when they're trying to pick something up from someone else, don't agree on a price before they go see it, and once they have seen it, then they tend to negotiate. But no one is going to get a deal where it's a third of the original price. Trying to ask for $210 off while calling it a little cheaper is just flat out delusional, and a child who behaves that way does not deserve any kind of gaming console. If you'd like your story to be narrated by me, don't forget to visit the subreddit r/VoiceyHere, link below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.